Hello, this is Coding Gicha for full-stack developers. Up until the previous video, I've covered the overall Vim settings without going into detail. To customize your settings to your liking, it's helpful to learn more about them. This video will cover the nerdtree package and the related Vim settings. Let's navigate to the .vim directory. I'll open the vim-rc.vim file using vim. The .vim-rc file is a symbolic link to the vim-rc.vim file, so any changes made to the vim-rc.vim file will be reflected in .vim-rc. After entering command mode by typing : you can open additional files by typing e followed by the file name. When you open additional files in Vim, they are saved in a buffer, allowing you to quickly reload them in their original state. If you configured the settings as per the previous video, vim-buffet is installed, so the buffers are displayed in tabs at the top. I'll cover vim-buffet in more detail in a separate video. To close the current buffer, type :bw. Although there is an auto-completion feature, loading a file with :e is somewhat inconvenient because you need to know the file path and file name to some extent. A file browser makes loading files easier. Nerdtree is a package that supports this file browser feature in a tree view. Running vim, which manages Vim configuration, allows you to easily view a list of Vim packages. I already installed nerdtree in the previous video. If it's not installed, you can easily install it using vim-add. Additionally, if you install vim-devicons and nerdtree-devicons-syntax, icons will be displayed according to file type. Vim manages Vim packages as Git submodules. Git submodules are managed in the .git modules file. General configuration information for nerdtree can be found at the nerdtree GitHub address. You can access the package's GitHub address in a web browser for a more detailed explanation. Let's run nerdtree. The file navigation window opens like a sidebar on the left, making it much easier to open additional files. Press Enter in a directory to expand it, allowing you to view the files within it. Finally, press Enter in a file to open it. Let's focus back to the nerdtree window. The nerdtree window remains focused on the expanded directory, making it easy to select additional files. Let's also open the vim-rc.vim file. Running nerdtree toggle toggles the nerdtree window. Executing the nerdtree toggle command also toggles while maintaining the previous expanded state. Let's open another file. This time I'll only run nerdtree. Because it's being reloaded, the previous state won't be preserved. Since the nerdtree window is also a Vim window, you can close it with the :q. To explain while checking the current nerdtree settings, let's run nerdtree again. In practice, nerdtree's execution splits the screen left and right and displays it on the left, so you can move the focus of the window using Vim split screen shortcut. Since vim-buffet is installed, the buffers are displayed at the top in tab format. Currently, entering a backslash followed by a buffer number will jump to the corresponding buffer, so the vim-rc.vim file can be easily moved by typing \3. I'll cover vim-buffet in more detail in a separate video. Since the nerdtree commands are rather long, it's convenient to map nerdtree-related commands to shortcuts as well. Most applications use F9 to toggle the sidebar, so I mapped nerdtree toggle to F9 as well. The shortcut to focus the nerdtree window is Ctrl plus F9. Shift plus F9 can be mapped to the nerdtree command, allowing you to use it as if refreshing the nerdtree. You can map shortcuts with the Control key to the C-, with the Shift key to the S-, and with the Alt key to the A-. It's also a good idea to map shortcuts for the insert mode as well. When pressing a shortcut, you need to press the ESC key to switch to normal mode, type the command, and then press Enter. ESC is written in angle brackets and Enter is written in angle brackets. Backspace, tab, space, function keys, pipes, insert, delete, and arrow keys can also be used with the specified characters in angle brackets. The default style of Vim's vertical split display doesn't match the dark theme, so I use it with the dark setting. I'll comment out the relevant settings and check them out. Since you're not opening the .vimrc file but the vimrc.vim file, which is a symbolic link, you need to specify the .vimrc file instead of the %. The vertical split lines of the nerdtree window and the text editor window don't match the dark theme. Let's change the settings back to my preferred style. The status line is the divider that displays the Vim airline line for the focused window. The status line NC is the divider for inactive windows. I'll darken both. Let's also check the nerdtree related settings. The icons displayed to the left of directory or file names in nerdtree are due to the vim-devicons and the nerdtree-devicons-syntax. I'll disable the vim-devicons applied to nerdtree. I'll also comment out the nerdtree related settings. Package-related settings won't be applied immediately, so you'll need to restart Vim. Press QA to close all open Vim windows. I'll open the vimrc.vim file in Vim. Before continuing with nerdtree, let's first address the strange characters displayed at the bottom of Vim. After installing some packages, such as devicons, opening files in Vim may result in strange characters appearing at the bottom, depending on your environment. When multiple packages are called, execution tends to be delayed. If there's a delay when the terminal response sequence is transmitted to Vim, some of it is interpreted as keyboard input, resulting in strange characters being printed. Moving the cursor to the relevant line displays it correctly, but I'll fix it so it displays correctly as soon as the document is opened. Setting the terminal receive to an empty value and manually configuring the TTY mouse will resolve this issue to some extent. While the frequency of strange characters being printed has decreased, the issue may still occur occasionally. This time I'll launch nerdtree using the F9 shortcut. It's a bit clunky, displaying only directory and file names without icons. Also, a notification about the question mark shortcut, which toggles help display, and an additional item for navigating to parent directories have been added, reducing the space by 3 lines. Press the question mark to display help. The shortcut to change the selected directory to the tree root is capitalized C. The shortcut to move the tree root directory up is U. Let's exit the help window by typing the question mark. You can also use G to move focus to the top of the nerdtree window. Let's press capitalized C in the pack directory. Press U to move the tree root to the parent directory. By default, nerdtree doesn't show hidden files. You can toggle the display of hidden files by pressing capitalized I. If you recall the shortcuts for toggling the help and moving the tree root to the parent directory, it is now efficient to eliminate the space saved by them. Let's apply devicons to nerdtree. Applying a minimal UI to nerdtree will remove the 3 lines at the top of the tree window. Save the settings and restart Vim for the changes to take effect. Let's take another look at the nerdtree UI. The help display toggle in the menu for navigating to parent folder have eliminated the clutter, and icons are displayed based on directory and file type. However, the default directory arrow feels a bit clunky. The default directory arrow in nerdtree is a triangle, but these days the angle bracket shape is more commonly used. You can also change the appearance of the folder icon for expanded and collapsed views. I'll also remove the space between the directory arrow and the folder icon. Save the settings and restart Vim for the changes to take effect. The nerdtree UI has now been modernized. The folder icons are displayed differently when expanded and collapsed, so you can remove the directory arrows. I personally prefer the tree style used in Visual Studio Code. Let's change the display to display the directory arrows instead of the folder icons. Save the settings and restart Vim for them to take effect. The nerdtree UI now resembles Visual Studio Code's UI. Nerdtree conflicts with some other Vim packages. Rainbow and Vim indent guides conflict with nerdtree. Let's comment out the settings to resolve the conflict with nerdtree and see what the issue is. I'll restart Vim to apply the changes. Rainbow is a package that displays parentheses clearly. If you install these packages, the nerdtree window will display extra brackets on the folder icon. Vim indent guides is a package that displays vertical spacing according to indentation. However, nerdtree has a 2-space depth, which doesn't match the 4-space setting. Fortunately, Rainbow and Vim indent guides can be configured not to apply to nerdtree. Visual Studio Code's tree displays vertical lines based on depth. Since I can use Vim indent guides to apply them like vertical lines, I'll keep the Vim indent guides as commented out. Before setting the indentation spacing to 2 spaces in nerdtree, there's a conflict with Rainbow, so I'll save and restart to reflect the changes before proceeding with the rest of the work. I've also applied the indentation display from Vim indent guides to nerdtree, but nerdtree has a 2-space depth, which doesn't match the 4-space setting. Let's move to the /ft plugin directory. The node-related menu in nerdtree is accessed with the M key. Press it to add a child node. Let's create a file called nerdtree.vim. To create a directory, add a / after the directory name. Newly created files don't immediately have the dev icons applied, but you can press R to apply them immediately. Let's set the tab stop to 2. You should also set the shift width to 2, but since nerdtree doesn't use insert mode, you don't need to set it. Save and restart Vim. Let's run nerdtree. The nerdtree UI now looks more like Visual Studio Code's tree UI. I personally prefer Visual Studio Code's tree UI. If you prefer to separate directory arrows from folders, I recommend disabling Vim indent guides in nerdtree. To separate directory arrows from folder icons, I'll change the directory arrows to angle bracket glyphs. I'll also comment out the information that sets the folder icons to be visible for open and closed folders. Save and restart Vim. I'll run nerdtree. Because there are additional directory arrows in front of folders and indent guides are displayed vertically at the location of the directory arrows, it can be misleading to believe that files at the same depth are subordinate to the same folder. If you prefer to separate directory arrows from folders, I recommend disabling Vim indent guides in nerdtree. Let's remove the directory arrows and revert the icons for open and closed folders back to the directory arrow symbol. I'll reflect these changes to the Git repository. Thank you for watching.